Good evening, everybody. I was just one of the members that we discussed having a workshop, and this is in reference to the ordinance that we have on the book that Councilman Don Prisbalinski, I'm having tongue-tied today, introduced, but several of us are co-sponsoring along with him. And it's more to get a better understanding from Mr. York and Mr. Wright on, how the sidewalks will be identified, moving forward, and what kind of, we don't have to get into a full-blown maintenance program, but is there a list of sidewalks right now that need immediate attention? And then how will we do this moving forward is probably where we should start. And then on the flip side, how do we get an inventory, possibly by, hiring some interns or working with a company to get some interns to do a sidewalk inventory. So I'll ask Skylar or Mr. Wright, Jeff, to kind of interject on what your thoughts on for the initial sidewalks for that $100,000.
Skylar, you want me to go first? Okay. So, I think, as I was thinking about, I don't have like a formal presentation prepared. I just, I can tell you a little bit about how we got here to the $100,000. I think that's important to how we arrived at $100,000. And there was, I told the mayor, I says there was no magic or science involved whatsoever getting $100,000. Councilman Don called one day and said, what's a good number for sidewalks? And I said, I don't know. So I called Haas, and the last project that they sent out was a contract for about $80,000. So I got back a hold of Councilman Don and said, well, maybe $150,000 would be going out of the gate, a good spot. So somewhere between 100 and 150,000. And so that kind of went back and forth with, as I understand, between Councilman Don and the mayor and even Yvonne to a certain extent on what I think he called it a pain threshold. What's the financial pain threshold? It was the term that was used. And they came back and said, $100,000. And so, that's basically where the $100,000 came from. And so subsequently, discussions ensued about, how sidewalks were going to get selected, and do we want to go and score all the sidewalks based on some kind of a PACER, rating, and who was going to go first, and but the underlying premise of the $100,000 was not that, okay? It was not scoring the sidewalks. It was not coming up with a rating system. It wasn't adopting and studying, what other communities did for sidewalks. It was $100,000 to get 30 or 40 spot repairs out there. Where 5 or 10 foot section of pavement either needed to be ground and or total replaced. And so so that's where we were at. And the approach was, and some of you won't like it, but if a citizen called in, we didn't spend any money on sidewalk last year. Not nothing that I put out, and there might have been some carryover from 2019. I saw some invoices go throughout the course of the year. Maybe there was some carryover from 2019. I don't know. I wasn't involved in it. But, and so the $100,000, the whole premise was, let's go out and do some spot repairs, pick some for grinding, pick some for spot repairs. And I haven't studied it in any great detail because it's been a whole year, okay, since there was any talk of even any money available to do sidewalks. So honest to God, on the engineering side, the sidewalks went by the wayside because we had multiple other projects coming down the pike, CCMG, York Street. Even now I'm working on plans for, Cleveland Road. So, that being said, that's a little history of where the 100,000 came from. Now, how do we, somebody says, well, how are we going to pick sidewalks? And then, I think, and Skylar could probably weigh in at this point, I think we're kind of leaning towards maybe a couple of interns out of one of the local Ivy Tech or PNC, or whatever, to collect that information for us. We want the information on the GIS system.
Mm-hmm.
So that means like a handheld device, probably not a phone. They're not accurate enough. It's not close enough to do it on a phone or like an iPad or something like that. We want somebody out there with like maybe a handheld GPS kind of a deal to locate, take a picture. All of that can go on the GIS. And then we could probably take, how much can an intern or two get done in the summer? I don't have any idea. Okay, I have no idea how long it takes an intern to walk, a ward. I don't know. If you guys would walk your ward, you would know, well, it takes me 3 days or 4 days to walk my ward. I don't know. So, and that's another option. That's a whole nother option. Maybe you want to get out there and meet the folks. You know what I mean? Meet the folks a little bit. I don't know what you guys want to do, but meeting the folks ain't a bad idea. So I don't really care if it's interns or if you guys, for the $100,000, I'm going to take 30 of those and put them out to contract and get it done.
Yeah.
So it's no more complicated than that. I'm going to get 30, and we'll see how much of that 100,000 is ate up. If there's 20 or 30 left, I'll put out 10 or 15 more, and then we'll spend up to $100,000. Now, if you want, so here's my recommendation for this year. Maybe we kind of proceed kind of along those lines that this year we're going to do spot repairs, and then that would buy you 12 months. If you want a consultant or a couple of interns, even to come back, and finish. Depends on how you select it now. Do you want a consultant to do it? Do you want interns to do it? Let me talk about consultants just a little bit.
Before you go down that path, can I ask you a question? Because before we get down the path of consultants and interns and all of that, because I think that's separate from this 100,000. I think the 100,000, we want you to do well, in my opinion, I just want you to do the sidewalks. I think that's a secondary. The inventory piece is separate. I was just wondering if you had a list of sidewalks already that citizens have like complaints or.
So back in January, February timeframe, there was a list of probably a dozen spots that was just kind of carried over that I got from Tom Weinman, because everybody in town knows to call Haas. You know what I mean? So they would call Tom Weinman and kind of keeping a list going. I haven't seen that list since last January, last February timeframe, because I just didn't get involved in it. There was no money to do it. As far as managing a sidewalk program, there's no gentle way to say it. I would do it if the mayor directed me to do it, but there's no money in it to save for the city if I do it. Let's say on an expensive contract, let's say that's $50,000 to have a consultant do it. Okay, that's not enough money for me to mess with. When I put out Cleveland Road, we're talking about $400,000 or $500,000 of engineering fees we're saving. We put out York Street, that was $100,000 of savings. So $50,000 isn't nothing to sneeze at. It's $50,000. I wouldn't sneeze at it. You give me $50,000, I'll take my GPS out in the evening and go do it. But it's just not enough money on a larger scale for me to run that kind of a program to that level of detail. So
and that's what I was wanting us just to understand, that this is not a whole lot of money, and that I just want people to understand, because one of my first internships, I did GPS stuff with the power company years ago, 1990. And I just rode around all summer, every single day. And what I'm saying is, we can investigate that further, and maybe that's where we start asking for the additional dollars and for something else. But I know that with the 100,000, I just was wondering if there was a list of sidewalks that we know, are in bad shape, or that are in jeopardy, or that we've received complaints about. Because I would think if we've received complaints about them, I wouldn't care what ward they're in. If we receive complaints about them, we probably
valid
get them on the list, right? And I was just wondering if we had that, and then for the $100,000 to get as much of the sidewalks that we've received complaints on, or that we know are hazardous. If there's some out there, can we just tackle those? And
so I could go back through my
outside
email.
of the TIF, remember?
I'm sorry, yes.
Tackle those, and then figure out. Then let the council people, submit some ones, the areas that are bad.
If I can find it, I sent somebody, I don't remember who it was. They wanted a list of a half dozen or a dozen sidewalks that needed replaced. It was last year. I'll see if I can find it. I may or may not be. I sent it to somebody. Who it was, I don't remember. If it's there, fine. If not, then I don't have it.
Jeff,
but I will look to see if I have.
Jeff, I meant to ask you this question today. I'm sorry I did not, but it's a simple question. Have we looked at any of the, claims, like people are falling on a sidewalk? Could those go on that list as well?
Or
if they're valid, you know what I mean? If there was something valid with a fall or something, they may have just tripped and fell.
So almost every sidewalk claim is associated with the reason why it needs to be repaired. Their grandmother is there. Personally, if there was money, I would move the disabled child to the top of the list, before that's me. All right. That's just me. I would, put something like that on the top of the list. But as memory serves, it was elderly. I distinctly remember,
a lot of it's been elderly call-ins,
disabled. And just as a side note, there's been at least 3 lawsuits that we've been in since last January. And I'm still answering over the course of this year. Just yesterday, I'm writing emails to an attorney over a sidewalk that somebody fell, 2 years ago. So
Yeah.
2019, January 8th, it was either 2019 or 2000. It might even have been 2018. June 8th is what it is. I forget the year, 19 or 18. But so, you know, I mean, that was really the target of the $100,000, trying to minimize that risk a little bit. It appeased, you know, some of the call-ins, you know, some of the people that called in. But I like the idea, you know. So the GIS is a very powerful tool, and we need to put it to use. I might have said it already, but let's get those locations on that GIS system, and then we work at some systematic approach. And I do have suggestions for that. Yes, sir.
Jeff, yeah, a couple questions. So we won't do any repair work, the way I understand. We won't do any repair work until this GIS inventory is done. Do we have to wait till that inventory is done before we can do repair work? Or
I don't think so.
Because I can, I can walk, you know, neighborhoods all day long, and I can find you want bad sidewalks, I can find bad sidewalks. But then, you know, where does it stop? You know, do I call in with, you know, 4 blocks of bad sidewalks or 5 blocks of bad sidewalks? That's going to cost. And I don't know how much a block costs. That's another thing I'm going to ask you. You know, so where does one councilman get his sidewalks fixed, and then another councilman calls in and says, "Hey, you know, I got another $10,000, $15,000 worth of sidewalk work. You know, in order to keep it even across the board with the site, because I'm sure councilmen, you know, they're going to go out and look. Because I certainly wouldn't wait for the GIS to get completed. Now, how much sidewalk lengthwise or city blocks? Break it down in city blocks. How much sidewalk can we get done? Like, you know, 5 city blocks, 6 city blocks, 7, so that we all know what we're talking about here. We're not talking about miles of sidewalks. We're talking about whatever you say, Jeff.
So the going rate, kind of, you know, the drill. Okay, one, Councilman Dunn and councilman or councilperson Angela probably get the most money because we like them the most. That was a joke.
I know.
Okay.
I caught it.
But like if we're doing a significant stretch of sidewalk, it's something around $45 to $50 to put the sidewalk in, the new sidewalk, and something like $20 or $30 a square yard, you know, to take the sidewalk out, something like that. So in and out, something like $70 or $80 a square. That's for a significant, you know, stretch. But spot repairs are not significant stretches. You know, that's somebody needs 4 blocks, right? We'll just call, you know, a block. We'll just say it's 5 foot by 5 foot, you know, 4 inches thick, a block. Slab, a sidewalk slab, we'll say. You know, a spot repair like that kind of depends on, you know, what's there. Is it 4 of those slabs? Is it 6? Is it upheaved? But they have to cut the roots out for a tree, you know, that kind of thing. Plus, it's more than just the sidewalk. There's some topsoil and everything back in, you know, on either side. So somewhere between, you know, $28 and you know, $4,000, you know, each. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm saying a spot repair somewhere between, you know, 30 and maybe 50. You know, just depends. Something like that. I mean, that's the ballpark.
Okay, so a spot repair, you said 30 to 50. 30 to 50 what? Not thousand.
28 to, what'd I say? 28 to 38 or something.
You said 30 to 50.
I don't know what 30 to 50 means. I must have misspoke. I don't.
Yeah, I don't. That's why I was asking 30 to 50,000. So if you're doing a spot 5x5, or if you're doing four 5x5 slabs right in a row, how much is that?
For discussion tonight, let's just say that's about $3,000.
Okay, all right.
That's good.
For tonight. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Just
Wow.
an estimate. I appreciate that.
I got a quick question I wanted to
You have
ask.
another question, Don? I thought you said you had a couple.
I have a
Nah,
question.
I'm good.
I saw
I'm good.
her hand up.
See, fine.
Yeah, I had a question too.
Okay. Dahlia?
Yes,
Councilwoman Jigas?
thank you. So I was just wondering, we need a strategy after this instead of the spots, fixing or whatever. Because, as the mayor mentioned, some places have no sidewalk and some places have two sidewalks on both sides of the street. Maybe one of our strategies might be eliminate, if one side is really bad, maybe just reinforcing that other side. So I think we need to have a overall strategy once we kind of get these little projects done to kind of see what we need to do to keep maintaining and keep going with this.
All right.
So that's what makes the GIS important.
Yeah.
Because no, we won't wait till the whole GIS is done. Once whoever does it, once they get like 30, like I said, we would push those out the door to a contracting.
Yeah, Councilman Fitzpatrick, and then Councilwoman Tracy Tillman, and then I think Paul is on, but Councilman Fitzpatrick, I know you want to say something.
Okay, so Mr. Wright, with this initial funding, would we be looking more to, or would it be more effective to try to make the most unsafe sidewalks safe first versus trying to replace full stretches? Because I know it'll probably be more costly to do, like you said, 4 or 5 blocks versus maybe replacing one block or grinding down a trip hazard or something to that effect. Is that more an appropriate strategy, or should we just do what's called in on first?
So what's called in would probably be a priority because your people are saying, I've got a problem. And so it would look good to go out and fix that. I'm going to say this, not everybody that calls and says they need sidewalk repairs really needs their sidewalk repaired. You're going to get some of those. You're going to get some of those that, what are you talking about? It's cracked, but it's not uneven. It's not tricky. So the effective strategy. I'm sorry, go ahead.
We have can we mute we need to mute one of the phones giving feedback. Okay, look.
Just to answer your question, the specific strategy is to get the data on the GIS. From the GIS, we can make choices and educated choices and decisions based on the mapping. Maybe there's hot spots. You know what I mean? Maybe there's a hot spot that has a lot of broken sidewalk. Maybe there's not. Maybe there's some cooler areas.
Okay. Well, Councilwoman Tillman, you're on mute.
My apology. Oh. My apologies. Thank you, Councilwoman Deitch. And I will post this question to Mr. Wright and to Councilwoman Deitch. So based off of whatever strategy that we come up with, and some may have fewer than others, if we're doing, or if it appears that this is going to be patchwork that's going to be done on these sidewalks, based off of the $100,000, then is it possible then to just take that amount and split it amongst the 6 wards. And I'm saying the 6 wards because there's 6 wards, but we have 3 at large. So could that be divided amongst that? And then if or should there not be a need for the full, because you're looking at approximately maybe $16,000 per ward.
It makes my thoughts, okay, I'll just share my thoughts. Ultimately, once it's on the GIS, we'll have some serious information we can make good choices with. I mean, one of the thoughts that we were kind of toying around with is not splitting that into 6, but let's do, maybe we do, and I don't know, okay, I don't know, I'm just going to give you the concept. Let's do 2 wards this year. That means the other 4 wards, you don't get any sidewalks, okay? But you throw you throw more money into 1 ward, that canvas is more of a targeted area. You know, is it 3 wards? You know, I don't know. 2 wards? Is it 1 ward? It depends on how bad, you know. But just for discussion, you know, maybe it's a more targeted approach. And so maybe you give, all right, the 4 of you guys have got to suck it up while the other 2 are getting the love, getting some work done in there. But the trade-off would be, maybe the trade-off is when we go for CCMG, the 2 wards that didn't get sidewalks, maybe they get, instead of all 6 wards being targeted, we target 4 wards. So 4 wards get CCMG, 2 wards get sidewalk, and then we just kind of rotate by one. We rotate by 1 ward, that kind of philosophy, that kind of concept. That way you're throwing a serious dollar amount into 2 wards rather than splitting it. I mean, $16,000, if that's what the math works out, that's a great point. That's going to get you 3 spot repairs. Multiply that by 3, that gets you, 10 places, 9 places, something like that.
Yeah, and I would share too that just from an engineering perspective, I'm not for splitting it out by council people. I think it should be wherever the greatest need is where it should go. Wherever and Mr. Wright, if he goes out and there's been some complaints and he goes out and he looks and it's a minor repair versus something else, he knows better than we would on if that really should get repaired right away or not. I mean, but I think if we have a list and then you supply a list, I still think they have to go out and look at them and take the top whatever. I don't care if all of them end up in 1 ward, but I think once he has his list and then you all provide, everybody provides a list of sidewalks that they know need repair. We have to go out and look at them, and the top whatever get done first, and then the next group gets done, and so forth. I'm not, splitting it out doesn't mean they're the worst. I don't know. I think the ones that cause the most extreme danger to the public should get done until we get a sidewalk maintenance program, a full strategy in place. I think we target the ones that have been identified as the worst. And
I don't think we need you don't need an engineer to go out and tell you that the sidewalk's broke.
Right. Me and Don can go out and tell you. Me and Don will go out and go.
Yeah.
If we provide a list, you get the list and then I go to Tracy's ward or go to Don's ward and I'm like, these look worse than this one. I mean, it's probably simple as that with pictures, right?
Right. And if I may, and with the concept of what Mr. Wright was saying, and I agree with you, Councilwoman Deitch, but if it was utilizing Mr. Wright's concept, let's say there are two wards that's worse off, and of course the worst off are the ones that truly needs to be done first. But if another ward has two areas that is really bad, critical, how would you weigh that? That's why I was asking if the funds could be split for that purpose. But if not, if the funds or if the sidewalks meets the requirements, if it meets all the requirements and they're bad off and they actually truly need to be patched, repaired, replaced, then those get taken care of. If there's any funds left out of that ward, then direct them to another ward and for them to utilize and get whatever sidewalks that truly needs to be done.
This isn't a lot of money though.
Right.
That's not gonna get us a whole lot of
Right.
sidewalks, for sidewalks. President Mack.
Hey, kind of agreeing with Tracy. The fact that there's not a lot of money lends itself to me doing the max amount of individuals. Because if we had to rate every sidewalk in Michigan City 1 through 5, every 5 being the worst, it seems to me that a city of our size with this many sidewalks, every ward would have multiple 5s somewhere. So finding a differential between my 5 and your 5, I don't know, it lends itself to real difficulty for somebody like me, a layperson, to parse out. If we've got a small amount of money, and it just seems like we want to do the maximum units, the maximum people. And when I say units, I mean, if there's a house here and it needs 3, that's the house, as opposed to doing the entire ward, where maybe that house is a 2. Yeah, you know, the difficulty from an engineering perspective, getting people out, and cost effectiveness from that perspective, I would imagine that's where you lose the productivity of the dollar amount. But from our perspective, or my perspective as a ward person, and to alleviate or not even go down that path of ward sidewalks, to me it just would seem more credible if we at least made an assumption, like where the ward could say that, okay, I have no sidewalks for mine. That, you know, if you did it Tracy's way to some degree, it's like, well, I've got some bad ones, but I just want 1 done, and the other ward could have 2 or 3. Because we've got a large city and that's a lot of concrete, and I don't think $100,000 is going to close to fix all of the 5s that are a problem, regardless of one. That was just my 2 cents.
And I'm okay with however Mr. Wright, what he comes up with. I just wanted to make sure everybody understood that we don't have an inventory, a GIS inventory, and that's secondary to this 100,000. And I think that's where we can go request money, and also I talked to Skylar about you know, how the RDC can be involved in asking the attorney some questions. But I think that the inventory piece is separate from this $100,000. I think we need to spend the full $100,000 on sidewalks, and then the inventory piece is something secondary that we request funding to do with some students and let them do the inventory at some point in time, hopefully in the summer. But it's doable, and I think it's a easy training and request to be able to do something like that. But for the 100,000, Mr. Wright, I think if you could come up with if you have a list already, and maybe, I mean, I know we can't see a lot of this right now. It's probably not the right time, but you know, if you have a list, and then if some of the work people already have lists, maybe we can see what that looks like as far as the you know, the stretch of size-wise, what that looks like. But I know that once spring breaks, you'll be able to give us more information. But if we could just have some type of something drafted just to kind of give us an update on how you're going to proceed. I think I know Councilman Paul Prisbalinski. I don't know if you wanted to add something, or Councilman Dabney, but you kind of hear all our thoughts, and whatever I'm okay with what you come up with. I just want to make sure that we're targeting, areas that are the worst off. And again, if you decide that, the list that you got has predominantly certain wards, long as you let the council know, I guess I'm okay with how you proceed. I just know that it's a small amount, and I was hearing, first come, first served, and I was hearing split it out amongst the council people, and I'm like, do we have a list? I mean, I guess that's the starting point. If we have a list and we know that there's some issues, let's tackle those, and then, you come up with a plan to tell us how we can address, the other areas. I mean, that was my only thought, is that we haven't really seen anything. We're going to allocate this money, possibly here at the next council meeting, but we don't really know what the next step is. And I think that's kind of
I think you're saying what I was kind of talking about. Essentially, this $100,000, we go at it from the known ones that we have. Mm-hmm. And then maybe there's a couple more that we can find. But I think in the long run, you need to put 2 people on this. That's on your guys' end. I mean, you guys need to put a couple interns on this, so that come next summer, when you allocate another 100,000 or 150 or whatever, those are on a list. We know exactly where they're at. We know, are we grinding? Are we repairing? And we put that into a contract and send it out. And then just each year, just keep chipping away at it. I mean, that's...
Yeah. I calculated, and I know Mr. Dabney, I calculated 3 interns at a decent amount, a reasonable wage for the summer, and it's about $20,000 for 3 full-time interns. So I know that's something we can look at, 3 or 4 full-time interns during the summer while they're home from college. So, or graduating from high school. So
not an engineering firm, because for what you pay an engineering firm, you could pay serious money. You could pay some serious money to some interns over the summer. And I'm not talking $15 an hour, I'm talking 20 or even more, for the course of the summer. And you would still be half the cost of a consultant.
Exactly. I made $12 in 1990 an hour, so for interning. So, Mr. Dabney, I know you had your hand up.
Yeah, I mean, real quick, I mean, like I said, we're talking about the small amount of funds here. Some of us are going to have to play nice in the sandbox. Tracy, Don, Sean, Michael, they may have sidewalks that are in more need of repair than what I may find in the first ward. And, we can't argue. I can't argue with them over trying to split this money. So somebody's going to have to, like I said, if they find something that really needs to be done, I mean, I'm just going to have to say, hey, we got to handle, like I said, this is one where we're all coming together now, where everybody can be pushing and fighting for their own ward. But I see it that we're going to have to play nice in the sandbox. And like I said, if they find areas or sidewalks that are much more disrepaired than what I can find, then I'll gladly say, hey, they have that money. I have a couple of constituents that, especially one over here on School Street and Walker, I know they've been asking for sidewalk and some repair on that corner and stuff like that. But once again, if they find something in their ward that needs repair right now, that's, like Angie said, as a safety hazard, then some of us are going to have to play nice in the sandbox.
Tyler, do you have anything to add?
No, it's been great hearing you guys talk about this. I think we're on the right track, and just echoing the things you guys said. I mean, if you think about the development of the city, you're going to have the older areas. You're going to have older pieces of sidewalks there. It's just the natural development of the city. So there are going to be certain wards that inevitably are going to have worse sidewalks. There's going to be worse areas of town. We can all think of them in our head of what, thinking about the sidewalks that we're thinking about, and where they're at. So I think just being aware of that it's not playing a favorite or playing a ward as a favorite. It really is about addressing the needs of the community and trying to trying to make our $100,000 go as far as we can. It's really not a lot of money when you're talking about concrete and sidewalks. It just doesn't go that far. I believe at one point in time, Jeff, you'd thrown out 3,000 linear feet of sidewalk at 5 foot across or something like that. I mean, if you think about that, that's not a lot of, that's not a lot. And I think Jeff's trying to maximize, take advantage of putting a package together of 30 at a time where he can maximize that economics of scale as well. So if mobilizing the concrete people to go to lots of different places all over the city, you're losing an economic of scale to some extent. So if you can keep them congregated and close and things of that nature, it becomes a little bit, our 100,000 goes a little bit further.
That's the power of the GIS.
And absolutely, that's where I was going with that. And that's the beauty of the GIS is having, oh, look at this cluster up here. Let's go knock them out. There's 40 of them. Maybe we can get a bid for 40 rather than 20, that are spread out. I think that just being aware of that, and I think it's also important for you guys, for the council, if we're going to do this and get the stuff on a GIS, every year carving out $100,000, whatever you can, something. Don't put nothing into it because it's like a road. Every year you're going to actually probably lose. It's degrading. It's not stopping degrading. So
the life cycle of a sidewalk
to stay on it. Say what?
What is the life cycle of a sidewalk?
I mean, a life cycle of sidewalk varies, but typically if other communities are doing it, that the communities I've lived in put them on a 50-year cycle. Now, that doesn't mean that a sidewalk may not get replaced in 5 years because you might have a development that comes along, but they typically try to get all of their sidewalks replaced in that 50-year period. That's what they're trying to do. It's not saying this sidewalk might get replaced, won't be replaced until 50 years from now. It's saying that's the goal.
100% of the whole entire city.
That's their goal.
Within 50 years.
And
Yes.
that too. You could come up with
If I can just comment on that, what's the life cycle of a sidewalk? In my mind, it probably all depends on how many cars drive over it, how many people are parking on sidewalks, how many people are parking in front yards that use the sidewalk as a driveway. So that has a lot to do with it that I think the city needs to address to cut down on the cost of repairing sidewalks. But I live over on Gardena Street, and this house was built, I think, back in 1950. Okay, so that's 70 years. And my sidewalk is in perfect condition. So there you got proof right there. Sidewalks, my sidewalk is gone for 70 years. So as long as it's taken care of and people don't abuse it, and we don't use them as streets instead of sidewalks, I think they last for a long time.
Yep.
All right. Any questions or comments, Mr.
I'm going to raise my hand.
I didn't know.
I think you bring up a good point. Those are policy questions. And I think you guys need to talk with Mayor about what the policies is going to be not for this batch, but down the road. Right. And Councilperson Dahlia said, do you want to do sidewalks on one side or even take them out on one side was proposed at one time. Those are policy questions. I mean, I'm happy to do whatever you guys tell me. Whatever you guys tell me. Another policy question might be if residents are parking on the sidewalks, sidewalks are not meant for cars. Correct. And if they're going to be parking on the sidewalks and destroying a brand new sidewalk that we put in, I say maybe those don't even get done. Maybe just throwing that out for discussion, Maybe that's the policy. If you guys are parking on sidewalks now, we're not going to fix your sidewalks because it's just going to get destroyed in, 3 months after we walk away. That's a policy question. You guys need to talk, you guys, I'll enforce whatever you guys tell me to do, but those are policy questions.
Thank you. Councilwoman Jigas, and then the only person I don't think we haven't heard from, just in case they want to say something, Councilman Simmons and Councilman Paul, if he's able to get on. But go ahead, Councilwoman Jigas.
This is just maybe a little bit off subject, but I saw they were removing some of those duplicate power poles, the NIPSCO poles downtown today. So is it part of their job to fix the sidewalk, that once they remove that, pole and kind of even that out? Is that part of their correction? I'm just wondering.
I can find out.
I don't have that answer.
I don't have the answer. Typically,
I would say probably not. They'll do as little as possible, so.
Typically, they pack them. They fill them with sand, and then they'll finish with a fine gravel and pack it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying it's right,
unless
but
they
saying
tear a
that's
sidewalk out, though. If they tear a sidewalk out, they will have to replace it.
Yeah, they do that. Yeah.
Councilman Simmons, did you have anything?
I just want to say, I think the biggest thing is was starting a program, getting started. And I would hope that we will start with those that are of a safety issue. Mr. Wright was alluding to that list that he is looking for. Are there any litigations in that list concerning sidewalks that should be addressed? Prioritizing. Again, we're not talking a lot of money. $100,000 in sidewalks.
I'm sure we spent more than $100,000 on Amber's time, my time, the insurance attorneys. They've had like 2 or 3 different attorneys on that at one time.
See,
course of the year for one trip.
My question is, did we go out and repair that sidewalk?
I understand that it all has been.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Councilman Paul, I don't know if you wanted to add anything. I think you're still there. I just wanted to double check.
He is muted. He'll have to dial *6 to unmute himself.
*6?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to ask the sponsor, Councilman Dunn, if he has anything else, and then we will wrap up. I'm going to text Councilman Paul to make sure he doesn't have anything.
I don't have anything else to add to tonight's discussion. I'm just appreciate everybody supporting the ordinance, and we can get a program up and running, because I know I've been talking to Jeff since he came on the job a year and a half ago about something, and he says, I don't have money in the line item. We need to get money. So, and then after we got into the street discussion this year, then the sidewalks came up, and when actually asked the mayor for $150,000, but then Yvonne said she felt more comfortable with $100,000. So that's where we're at, and we're going to get started and get a few sidewalks done this year, and every year we'll get a few done, and hopefully in 5 to 10 years from now, things will be in a lot better shape than they are today. So I don't have anything else to add. No, thanks for putting on the workshop, Angie.
Yeah, thank you. And then Council President Mack, I'll let you close if you have anything.
Nope, don't have anything. Outstanding. Great discussion. This is what we need more.
Yeah.
Education.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Wright and Skylar and Yvonne for jumping on here this evening and listening to the discussion. And Mr. Wright, look forward to seeing what you come up with. And then, like I said, I don't know if we have another meeting, but I think this might be a good opportunity to talk with AK Smith and with Haas and Associates and Global and those different companies about interns and what we could possibly do with some summer interns. So appreciate everybody joining.
Okay.
Councilman Dabney.
Yes.
Damn, I'm trying to get unmuted. Okay. Sorry about that. But now when we're talking about just because when she said interns, it made me think of something here. Now, what type of expertise or what would somebody like that, an intern, do for us? Because it immediately made me think of students that are out at PNW and other places like that. They have federal work study money where they can do projects and work on things like this and get paid through their federal financial aid dollar.
Not a whole lot. So for inventory, they're handheld devices. They take pictures, walking. It's not a whole lot. They can be trained to, identify, the differences and good, bad, or ugly. I mean, it doesn't take a whole lot, but I know that that would be a good opportunity. I just would want them to be Michigan City residents. If they go to PNW or Ivy Tech. I mean, that would be my only caveat for students is that they're Michigan City residents.
But I was just saying because those would be paid, not even through us, they'd be paid through their own federal financial aid money. And that's why I brought it up. We would even have to charge if we had some of them.
So and Angie?
Yes.
Yeah, and along those same lines, so I'm sitting here thinking that kind of spurred a thought in my mind, for the Promise Scholarship. You have engineering students. I'm sure they need volunteer hours. Yeah, so that'd be perfect for a couple of engineering students come home in the summer and do that. So that's another option we got there, and it wouldn't cost us a dime.
We talked about that too, because I think we have the opportunity to train some of our our young adults, to do some of this, and it's good to put on their resume. I mean,
right.
And it's not hard, but like I said, all I did was drive around and look at damaged poles and write down what was wrong with them all summer, every day, and that was my job. And I think it's good to put that up, intern for the city of Michigan City, intern for whoever, but it's good to have it on a resume, and it's a resume builder, and plus it helps the city. So I think those are some good comments, and we'll take those into consideration as we move forward. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for getting on, and Mr. Wright, we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you all.
Appreciate your time.
All right. Good night.
Everybody. Good night.
Good night.